The man broke down crying on his knees 47 hours into the standoff. But that's not where this begins. This begins with what it takes to break someone without ever touching them. The kidnapper looked directly into the camera and said a name, not the girl's name, not his own. A name that didn't appear in any public record. A name that only one person in the FBI Crisis Command Center would recognize. The name of a child who died 7 years ago under the watch of Special Agent Marcus Hale. And when that name left the kidnapper's mouth, everyone in the room turned to look at the negotiator whose face had just been stripped of its mask. Marcus stood perfectly still. But inside, something ancient and wounded opened its eyes. Because this wasn't just a kidnapping anymore. This was an execution designed specifically for him. Rewind 6 hours. The call came at 6:17 in the morning. Not to the police, not to the FBI, to the father. A decorated Navy SEAL who had spent 20 years teaching men how to survive impossible situations. He picked up the phone expecting his daughter's voice and instead heard her breathing, fast and shallow, before a man's voice cut through like wire through flesh. The voice spoke slowly, deliberately, like someone who had rehearsed this moment until every syllable carried the weight of a verdict. He didn't want money. He didn't want escape. He wanted the world to watch a hero beg. Wanted to prove that strength is just another word for the lie we tell ourselves before someone calls it. Within 40 minutes, the FBI had assembled a crisis command center. Maps on walls. Phones ringing in rhythms that sounded like panic trying to organize itself. Tactical teams checking weapons they hoped they wouldn't need. And in the center of it all, Special Agent Marcus Hale, 45 years old, gray at the temples, standing with the kind of stillness that makes chaos feel obscene. Marcus had ended 37 hostage situations without firing a shot. But numbers don't tell you what it costs. Don't tell you about the one that failed. The one that still wakes him at 3 in the morning with his own voice screaming instructions that arrived too late. The child who didn't come home. The moment when all his training turned into noise and he learned that control is just a story you tell yourself until reality disagrees. That failure never left. It just moved addresses, from his nightmares into his heartbeat. And now every hostage he saves is the one he couldn't. Every life recovered is a debt payment on a loan that never decreases. Every negotiation is a chance to rewrite an ending that already happened. The SEAL father arrived like a storm looking for a target, jaw locked, eyes scanning for something to destroy. He wanted to lead the response, wanted to be the one who brought his daughter home because that's what fathers do when the world takes what belongs to them. Marcus understood and refused, because rage is a weapon that kills in every direction, and the last thing the situation needed was love turned into a missile. The father's voice cracked when he spoke, not with weakness, with the kind of strength that knows it's about to break. "That's my daughter in there." Marcus looked at him with eyes that had seen this moment from both sides. "And that's exactly why you can't be the one to get her out." Command wanted immediate action, wanted tactical insertion and sniper positions and the kind of force that ends situations by rewriting them in blood. But Marcus believed something most negotiators don't say out loud. You can't force truth out of someone. You create a wound they choose to reveal. You make space for confession by making silence unbearable. Control isn't about volume. It's about knowing when to speak and when to let fear do the talking for you. He spoke 4 languages and understood a 5th one that most people never learn. The language of what people don't say. The silences between words. The breath before a lie. The pause that means someone is choosing between truth and survival. At 7:43, the kidnapper's first message went live, posted on multiple platforms simultaneously. No masks, no voice distortion. Just a man in his late 30s, ex-military by the posture, speaking into a camera with the confidence of someone who had already written his own ending and made peace with the punctuation. He called himself a patriot abandoned by the system he served. A contractor who came home to find his career dissolved, his benefits denied, his sacrifice reframed as a billing error in someone's spreadsheet. He said he wasn't asking for justice anymore because justice requires someone listening. He was demonstrating what justice feels like when it stops being abstract, when it gets a face and a father and a kitchen where breakfast goes cold while the world pretends to care. The girl was alive, he said, would stay that way if certain conditions were met, but the conditions weren't about money. They were about performance, about making a hero beg on camera, about proving that the men we call strong are just men who haven't been broken in public yet. And then he did it, looked directly into the camera, smiled with something that wasn't quite cruelty but wasn't far from it, and said the name of Marcus Hale's failure, the child who died, the one whose death certificate Marcus keeps in his desk drawer like a reminder of what happens when control becomes a fantasy. The room went cold. Phones stopped ringing, or maybe Marcus just stopped hearing them, because this wasn't a random kidnapping. This was a man who had done his homework, who knew that the best way to break a negotiator is to make him negotiate with his own ghost, who understood that every person has a wound, and if you press hard enough, the wound becomes the conversation. The kidnapper's smile widened, like he was greeting an old opponent across a chessboard, like he knew exactly who he was talking to and what buttons had been installed for moments precisely like this. Marcus's face gave nothing away. That's what 20 years of training does. Teaches you to wear stillness like armor. But inside, the old wound opened. Inside, he understood something that terrified him more than failure. The man wasn't trying to hurt the girl. He was trying to hurt Marcus. The girl was just the medium, just the message, just the wound made visible so the world could watch a negotiator bleed. Command erupted. Voices demanding action. The SEAL father's hands curling into fists. Tactical teams requesting green lights. Everyone wanting to do something because doing nothing feels like dying slowly. Marcus raised one hand. Just one. And the room went quiet, because everyone in that command center knew something about Marcus Hale. When he asked for time, people died less. When he asked for patience, families stayed intact. When he asked you to trust the process had earned that trust in blood not spilled and lives not ended. He looked at the screen where the kidnapper's face was frozen mid-smile, looked at it the way a surgeon looks at a scan before deciding where to cut, and he said something that would define everything that followed. Time is the only weapon that doesn't kill. Give me 48 hours. The SEAL father's voice came out like gravel. 48 hours for what? For him to hurt her? For him to? 48 hours to make him want to stop. Silence. Because that sentence carried implications no one wanted to examine. The idea that you could make someone want to surrender. That you could break a man's resolve without breaking his body. That empathy could be weaponized if you knew where to aim it. Marcus turned back to the screen. To the man who knew his worst moment. To the ghost he'd been trying to outrun for 7 years. And he felt something shift inside him. Not fear. Not anger. Something colder. The recognition that this negotiation wasn't about saving a girl. It was about whether Marcus could save himself from the person he became the day he failed. 48 hours to find the wound in a man who had already found his. 48 hours to turn rage into confession. 48 hours to prove that control is just another word for understanding what someone needs to hear before they break. 48 hours to save a girl and lose a piece of himself he'd never get back. The clock started. And somewhere in a location they hadn't found yet, a girl sat in darkness wondering if heroes were real or just another story adults tell to make fear feel temporary. When does calm stop being strength and start becoming denial? When does the mask of control become the face underneath? When does saving someone stop being heroism and start being the thing you do because you can't save yourself? Marcus didn't know yet, but he would, because every negotiation is a confession, and this one was about to reveal whose. Subscribe to Ruthless Negotiator, where psychology becomes a weapon. The first rule of negotiation: whoever speaks first loses control. The second rule: make them think they spoke first. Marcus sat alone in a soundproof room with a phone that connected to nowhere yet. The kidnapper hadn't provided contact information, hadn't given demands, just uploaded a video and disappeared into silence, which meant he was waiting, testing, watching to see who would blink. 3 hours passed. The SEAL father paced outside the command center like a caged animal, counting the minutes until his daughter became a statistic. Tactical teams had located 7 possible sites. None confirmed. Command wanted to move on all 7 simultaneously. Marcus said no, because wrong doors kicked in at the wrong time don't save hostages. They create body counts. At hour 4, the kidnapper posted again. Not a video this time, just a photograph. The girl alive holding that day's newspaper, proof of life. But her eyes told a different story. Red from crying, exhausted from fear, still believing someone was coming, still holding on to the lie that heroes don't fail. The SEAL father saw the photo and broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just stood there with his hands shaking and his jaw working like he was chewing on words too sharp to swallow. She's afraid. Marcus didn't look at him, kept his eyes on the screen. She's alive. That's what matters. For how long? As long as he needs her to be. That answer landed wrong. The father turned, and for a moment Marcus saw something dangerous move behind his eyes. The kind of rage that wears the face of justice. You're talking about my daughter like she's a chess piece. Marcus finally looked at him. In this room, that's exactly what she is. Out there, she's your daughter. In here, she's leverage. And the moment I forget that, she stops being either. Brutal. True. The kind of truth that cuts clean through sentiment and leaves only the wound behind. The father wanted to argue, wanted to scream, but he didn't, because somewhere underneath the rage he understood. Warriors don't win wars by caring more. They win by thinking clearer. At hour 6, the phone rang. Not the crisis line. Marcus's personal cell. A number he didn't recognize. He answered without hesitation, without checking with command. Because hesitation is a language that tells your opponent they have power. The kidnapper's voice came through calm, almost friendly. Special Agent Hale. I was wondering when you'd be the one they put on this. Marcus didn't respond immediately. Let 2 seconds of silence stretch into 3. Let the kidnapper feel the weight of empty air. Then softly, you know my name. That means you know my record, which means you know how this ends. A laugh, low and genuine, Oh, I know how it ends. That's why I chose you. That sentence carried implications. Marcus processed them in real time. Chose him. Not randomly. Not conveniently. Specifically. Which meant this wasn't about the girl. Wasn't about the father. This was about Marcus. About making him the subject of his own negotiation. He kept his voice level. Neutral. The tone you use when discussing weather with a stranger. Then you know I'm not here to play games. You want something. Tell me what it is. I want you to do your job, Agent Hale. I want you to negotiate. I want to watch you use all those beautiful techniques they taught you at Quantico. The mirroring, the empathy, the tactical manipulation disguised as human connection. Another pause. I want to see if you can save her the way you couldn't save him. There it was. The wound opened with surgical precision. Marcus felt his pulse spike. Felt the old memories surface like bodies in dark water. The child who died. The negotiation that failed. The moment when all his training became useless noise. He pushed it down. Locked it away. Spoke with the same neutral calm. Her name is Sarah. She's 17. Plays violin. Wants to study marine biology. You know these things. You researched her family. I did. Then you know she's not your enemy. Whatever you're angry at, it's not her. You're right. The kidnapper's voice shifted. Quieter now. Almost reflective. She's just the mirror. The thing that makes the real target visible. Marcus understood. The girl wasn't the hostage. She was the frame. The context that turned Marcus into the actual subject. This entire situation was designed to put him in a position where saving someone meant confronting the person he couldn't save. Where success meant reliving failure. Where the only way out was through the wound that never healed. You changed tactics. Stopped defending. Started listening. You sound like someone who knows what it's like to lose something. Silence on the other end. Not empty silence. The kind that's full of things people don't say because saying them makes them real. Then quietly, we've all lost something, Agent Hale. The difference is some of us stop pretending we can get it back. There. The crack in the armor. Small. Almost invisible. But Marcus heard it. Heard the pain underneath the rage. Heard the exhaustion of carrying anger for so long it becomes the only thing holding you upright. He spoke softer. Slower. Matching rhythm. Matching tone. What did you lose? Another pause. Longer this time. When the kidnapper spoke again, his voice had changed. Less rehearsed. More human. I lost the belief that doing the right thing means anything. Lost it overseas. Lost it when I came home. Lost it when the system I served decided I wasn't profitable anymore. A breath. But mostly I lost the person who needed me to be better than I was. Marcus felt the shift. Felt the negotiation turn from confrontation into confession. This was the moment. The wound revealing itself. Not because Marcus forced it, but because silence became unbearable and truth became the only thing left to fill it. Who needed you? My son. 2 words. Delivered like a eulogy. Marcus didn't push. Didn't ask for details. Just let the silence hold the weight. Let the man feel the shape of his own admission. Because the best negotiations aren't about getting people to talk. They're about making space for them to confess. Outside the soundproof room, the command center was chaos. Analysts tracking the call. Technicians trying to triangulate location. The SEAL father watching Marcus through the glass like a man watching surgery on someone he loves. But inside that room, the world had narrowed to 2 voices and the truth trying to surface between them. The kidnapper spoke again. Quieter now. Almost tired. He was 8 when I left for the last contract. 12 when I came back. 15 when I realized I didn't know him anymore. 17 when he stopped pretending he needed a father. A pause that felt like falling. 18 when I stopped pretending I could be one. Marcus recognized the cadence. The way pain turns into poetry when you've rehearsed it enough times. Where is he now? Somewhere I can't reach him. Even if I wanted to. But you do want to. Wanting doesn't fix things, Agent Hale. You know that better than anyone. Another precision strike. Another reference to the child Marcus couldn't save. Another reminder that this negotiation was a mirror pointed both directions. Marcus felt the old guilt rise. Felt the familiar weight of failure. But he didn't flinch, didn't retreat. Because sometimes the only way to save someone is to let them see that you understand what it means to fail. You're right, Marcus said. Quiet. Honest. Wanting doesn't fix anything. But it's the only reason we try. Silence. Then, so soft it was almost inaudible, why are you telling me this? Because you're not a monster. You're just someone who's been in pain so long you forgot what relief feels like. Marcus paused. And because Sarah deserves to go home. Not because you owe me anything. Not because I'm a better person than you. But because somewhere inside, you remember what it's like to be someone's whole world. And you don't want to be the reason that world ends. The line went quiet. Not dead. Just silent. Marcus could hear breathing on the other end. Could hear the sound of a man standing at the edge of a decision trying to decide which way to fall. Then the kidnapper said something that changed everything. You think you're saving her, but you're just negotiating with yourself. And we both know how that ends. The line went dead. Marcus sat in the silence. Felt the weight of those words. Because they were true. Every negotiation he'd done since the child died wasn't about saving hostages. It was about rewriting an ending that already happened. About proving to himself that control was real. That empathy was a weapon. That the next time would be different because he'd learned from the last time. But what if the last time never stopped being the last time? What if every success was just postponing the inevitable failure? What if saving people was just the story he told himself to avoid the truth that some people can't be saved, and the ones who haunt you most are the ones you couldn't reach? Command erupted through the door. 20 voices demanding updates. The SEAL father pushing through them. What did he say? Is she okay? Did you? Marcus held up a hand. Everyone stopped. Because that hand carried authority earned in rooms like this. In moments like this. When everything is chaos and the only hope is the person who knows how to turn chaos into pattern. He's going to call back. When? When he's ready to confess something he doesn't know he's confessing yet. The SEAL father's face twisted. That's not good enough. My daughter. Your daughter is alive because he needs her to be. The moment she stops serving a purpose, that changes. So we give him a different purpose. We make him want to save her. Not because we forced him, but because letting her go is the only absolution he has left. Silence in the command center. Because everyone in that room understood what Marcus was proposing. Not a rescue. A conversion. Turning an enemy into someone who saves the hostage to save himself. Tactical teams didn't know what to do with that. Command didn't have a protocol for it. The SEAL father looked at Marcus like he was speaking a language that sounded like English but meant something else entirely. You're going to make him want to surrender. No. Marcus turned to face him. I'm going to make him need to. Outside the sun was setting. Inside the clock was ticking. The girl was still afraid. The father was still breaking. And Marcus was negotiating with a ghost that wore his own face. Is persuasion the highest form of compassion, or just a cleaner form of control? If this breakdown exposes the truth of control, hit subscribe. The second call came at hour 31. But it wasn't a call. It was a live stream. The kidnapper appeared on screen, not in the calculated way he had before. This time his eyes were red. His hands shaking slightly. The camera angle was wrong, tilted like he'd set it up in a hurry. And behind him, barely visible in the dim light, the girl sat with her knees pulled to her chest. Still alive. Still afraid. Still waiting for someone to prove that hope wasn't just another lie adults tell. He didn't speak immediately. Just stared into the camera with the look of someone who'd been awake too long with thoughts that cut. Then quietly, almost to himself, "You're watching this, aren't you, Agent Hale?" Marcus was. Command center silent around him. Every screen showing the same image. The SEAL father frozen at the glass, his reflection ghost-like in the monitor. No one breathed. No one moved. Because this wasn't a negotiation anymore. This was something raw. A man unraveling in real time. The kidnapper laughed. Not with humor. With the sound of someone who'd told themselves a story so many times they'd started to believe it and just now realized it was fiction. You want to know the funny thing? I had this whole plan. Whole script. I was going to make you beg. Make him beg. He gestured vaguely toward where the girl sat. Make everyone watch while I prove that heroes are just people who haven't been tested hard enough yet. He paused. Rubbed his face with both hands. When he dropped them, something in his expression had changed. The mask was cracking. But then you said that thing. About wanting being the only reason we try. And I keep hearing it. Keep hearing it like it's the only true thing anyone said to me in years. Marcus didn't move. Didn't speak. Just watched. Because this was the moment. The wound opening not because he'd cut it but because it could no longer hold itself closed. You know what I did after I got home? The kidnapper's voice was softer now. Almost confessional. I tried. I really did. Went to my son's school events. Sat in the back because I didn't know the other parents. Didn't know the inside jokes. Didn't know which teacher was the hard one or which kid was the bully. I was a stranger in my own kid's life. And the worst part? He was kind about it. Didn't yell. Didn't blame me. Just treated me like a guest who stayed too long. He looked down. Shoulders curving inward like he was trying to make himself smaller. I kept telling myself it would get better. That time would fix it. But time doesn't fix anything. It just makes you better at pretending the wound isn't there. Marcus leaned forward slightly, spoke into the microphone that connected to the kidnapper's feed. Come, steady. The voice you use when talking someone off a ledge. You're not pretending right now. The kidnapper's head snapped up, eyes finding the camera. No, I'm not. And you want to know why? Because you did something I didn't expect, Agent Hale. You didn't try to trick me. You just told me the truth. That you failed once. That you carry it. That you negotiate with ghosts. His voice cracked, and I realized I'm not the only one who's been lying to himself. Command stirred. The SEAL father moved closer to the glass. Marcus felt the weight of 20 pairs of eyes on him but kept his focus on the screen. On the man who was seconds away from either surrender or something worse. You're right, Marcus said. Simple. Direct. No performance. I do negotiate with ghosts. Every time. Every hostage is the one I couldn't save. Every success is just postponing the next failure. And you're right about something else too. I am negotiating with myself. Have been since the day I failed. Since the day I learned that all the training in the world doesn't matter when you're a second too late. Silence. The kidnapper staring into the camera like he was seeing Marcus for the first time. Like the mask had fallen off both of them simultaneously and what was left was just two men who understood what it meant to carry something that never gets lighter. Then why do you keep doing it? The question came out broken. Almost desperate. Why keep trying if you know it won't fix anything? Because the alternative is giving up. And giving up means the person I failed died for nothing. Means every hostage after that isn't a life saved, it's just another gravestone I walk past. Marcus paused. Because sometimes the only way to honor what you lost is to keep saving what you can. Even if it doesn't heal you. Even if it just reminds you of what you couldn't do. The kidnapper's face twisted. Not with anger. With something deeper. The kind of pain that comes when someone names the thing you've been running from so long you forgot it was chasing you. I can't save what I lost. No. But you can save her. That sentence landed like a verdict. The kidnapper looked to his left. To where the girl sat. To where innocence waited for adults to decide if cruelty or compassion would write the ending. His hands were shaking now. Not with rage. With something that looked like fear. Or maybe recognition. The understanding that he'd built this entire situation as a monument to his pain and now the monument was about to collapse on top of him. She reminds me of him, he said quietly. Same age he was when I realized I'd lost him. Same look in her eyes. That hope that someone's going to show up and fix everything. That belief that the world makes sense if you just wait long enough for the plot to resolve. He wiped his face. But the plot doesn't resolve. It just stops. And you're left holding pieces that don't fit anymore. Marcus spoke carefully. Each word placed like a stone in a foundation that might collapse if the weight was wrong. You can't fix your story. But you can change hers. You can be the person who shows up. Who proves that hope isn't just a lie. That sometimes adults do the right thing even when it costs them everything. And what does it cost me? Everything you built this situation to protect. The anger. The righteousness. The belief that you're justified. You have to let it go. All of it. And the wound underneath, the real one, you have to feel it without the armor. The kidnapper closed his eyes. Shoulders shaking. When he opened them again they were wet. You're asking me to break. He replayed the conversation in his head. Dissected his own words. Analyzed the techniques he'd used. The mirroring. The tactical empathy. The way he'd turned the kidnapper's pain into leverage and leverage into surrender. Plain. Efficient. Effective. And underneath all of it, the truth he didn't want to examine. He'd broken a man to save a girl. Used vulnerability as a weapon. Turned compassion into a scalpel and cut until the wound was too deep to ignore. Was that negotiation or manipulation? Was that empathy or exploitation? Was there even a difference when the outcome was survival? His phone buzzed. A message from command. Debriefing scheduled. Psychological evaluation mandatory after high-stress negotiations. Standard protocol. They wanted to make sure he was okay. Make sure the trauma of the situation hadn't compromised his ability to function. Make sure the weapon they'd sharpened wasn't starting to dull. He didn't respond. Just set the phone down and stared at nothing. The truth was, he wasn't sure he wanted to be okay. Wasn't sure that being okay with what he'd done meant he was still the person he thought he was. Because okay meant accepting that sometimes you save lives by destroying someone else's last thread of dignity. That sometimes mercy looks a lot like cruelty when you're the one administering it. That sometimes the hero and the villain are just two people using the same tools with different justifications. He thought about the kidnapper sitting in a cell somewhere. Probably not sleeping either. probably replaying the same conversation, probably wondering when exposure became execution, when confession became surrender, when the negotiator's empathy became the thing that broke him more completely than any threat could have. Marcus had seen the man's file. Read the history. Ex-military contractor. Decorated service record. Multiple tours. Came home to a system that treated him like inventory, useful until the contract ended, disposable after. Applied for benefits. Denied. Applied for work. Overqualified or underqualified depending on who was reading. Watched his marriage dissolve. Watched his relationship with his son turn into scheduled visits that felt like hostage exchanges. Watched himself become irrelevant in a country he'd bled for. And the breaking point? The final fracture? When his son stopped calling him back. When the visits stopped being scheduled. When he realized he'd traded his family for a mission that didn't remember his name. Was that justice? Was that the deal? Serve your country, lose your humanity, come home to find out the person you were is no longer compatible with the life you left behind? Marcus understood that trajectory. Understood it because he'd seen it in others. Understood it because he'd lived a version of it himself. Not military. Not contracts. But the same fundamental trade. Sacrifice yourself for the mission. Discover the mission doesn't guarantee you'll recognize yourself when it's over. He'd lost a marriage too. Lost it to the job. To the phone calls at midnight. To the negotiations that took weeks. To the version of himself that could sit across from evil and stay calm. His ex-wife told him once, near the end, "You're so good at understanding everyone else. But you forgot how to understand the person you come home to. Forgot how to be the person I fell in love with." She wasn't wrong. He'd chosen the job. Chosen it over her. Chosen it over any possibility of children. Chosen it because after the negotiation that failed, after the child who didn't come home, he needed to prove that control was real. That empathy worked. That he could save people if he just tried harder. Learn more. Perfected the technique. But perfection is just another addiction. And the thing about addictions is they take everything and promise it's worth it. The morning news showed the girl with her family. She looked older than 17. Looked like someone who'd seen the edge of the world and come back with questions no one wanted to answer. The reporter asked her how she felt. She smiled. Said she was grateful. Said she believed people were good. Said all the things you're supposed to say when cameras are watching and the ending is supposed to be happy. But Marcus saw her eyes. Saw the way they moved to the side when she talked about hope. Saw the performance. Recognized it because he wore the same mask every time someone thanked him for his service. Every time command called a negotiation successful. Every time he stood in front of cameras and accepted praise for outcomes that cost pieces of him no one could see. She would carry that room for the rest of her life. Would wake up sometimes and remember the fear. Would flinch at unexpected sounds. Would struggle to trust that safety is real because once you learn it can be taken, you never fully believe in it again. And everyone would tell her she was lucky. That she survived. That the story had a happy ending. But survival isn't the same as being okay. And happy endings are just the place where the camera stops rolling. The kidnapper would go to prison. Would spend years in a cell processing what happened. Would probably realize one day that Marcus hadn't saved him, just redirected his braking towards something society could manage. Would understand that the empathy he felt during that negotiation wasn't connection. It was extraction. The negotiator taking what he needed and leaving the wound to heal however it could. And Marcus? Marcus would go back to work. Would take the next call. Would sit across from the next person in crisis and use the same tools. The same techniques. The same empathy weaponized into compliance. Would save more lives. Would collect more debt payments on a loan that never decreased. Would slowly become less of a person and more of a function. A mechanism for turning chaos into resolution. A weapon that looked like compassion when held at the right angle. He stood, walked to his desk, opened the drawer where he kept the file on the negotiation that failed. The child who didn't come home. He kept it as a reminder, as motivation, as proof that failure was unacceptable and every subsequent success was penance. But looking at it now, he wasn't sure what it proved anymore. Just that he'd been carrying guilt so long it had become identity. That he'd turned tragedy into purpose and purpose into addiction. That he saved people not because he wanted to help them, but because he needed to prove he wasn't the person who failed once. That every hostage was really just him negotiating with himself. Trying to rewrite an ending that had already been written. Trying to control an outcome that was always going to be beyond control. And the worst part? It worked. He saved lives. He brought people home. He ended situations that could have ended in blood. By any reasonable measure, he was successful. Valuable. Necessary. But success had hollowed him out. Left him with nothing but the technique. Nothing but the ability to understand everyone except himself. Nothing but the capacity to save everyone except the person he used to be. He closed the file. Closed the drawer. Turned off the lights. Sat in darkness and felt the weight of 47 hours and one man's breaking and one girl's survival and the space between victory and cost that no one talks about because talking about it means admitting that heroes are just people who've learned to pay prices invisibly. The kidnapper had said something in those final moments. Right before the stream cut. Right before tactical breached and cameras captured the reunion. He'd said, "Some wounds don't heal. They just become part of who you are." Marcus had thought he was talking about himself. About the loss he carried. About the son he couldn't reach and the person he couldn't become. But sitting in the dark now, Marcus realized the truth. The kidnapper had been talking about both of them. Two men who'd lost pieces of themselves to missions and meanings and the belief that sacrifice justified the cost. Two men who'd become the wounds they carried. Two men negotiating with ghosts that wore their own faces. The difference was one of them went to prison. The other one went back to work. And Marcus couldn't decide which was mercy and which was punishment. He saved a girl's life. And learned that mercy can sound a lot like cruelty when spoken in the right tone. What's the ultimate failure? Losing control or losing the part of yourself that once cared? Subscribe to Ruthless Negotiator.